My wife told me, "From now on, watch the kids, cook, clean, and I will enjoy my life." I said, "Sure." Then I booked myself a trip and left the divorce papers on her pillow. I, 38 male, work as a data analyst. My job is to find the signal in the noise, to look at a chaotic system and identify the underlying pattern. It's a skill I've honed for over 15 years. I just never expected the chaotic system I'd have to analyze would be my own marriage. It was a Tuesday, taco night. A small, loud tradition in our house. Our daughter, Julie, 10, was debating the structural integrity of her taco shell, while our son, Nathan, 7, was trying to see how many black olives he could fit on his fingertips. I was at the stove, browning the meat, the familiar smell filling our kitchen. It was normal. It was our life. My wife, Diane, 36, walked in. She was wearing a new dress I'd never seen, and heels that seemed too sharp for a Tuesday evening at home. 6 months ago, she'd quit her part-time job in administration, claiming she was burnt out and needed to recenter. I supported it. I make a comfortable living, and her happiness was, I thought, our shared goal. I didn't realize recentering was a euphemism for drafting a coup. She leaned against the island counter, a glass of expensive wine already in hand. "Peter," she said, her voice unnervingly calm and rehearsed. "I need to tell you about the new arrangement." I turned down the heat, giving her my full attention. "New arrangement? What are you talking about?" "I've been working with my new life coach, and I've had a major realization," she said, staring into her wine glass as if it held the secrets to the universe. "For 12 years, I have been in a season of service, giving my energy, my youth, my body, my emotional labor has been the foundation of this family." The jargon was so alien, so corporate, it felt like a hostile takeover of our vocabulary. "Okay," I said slowly. "And that season is now over. It's time for my season of enjoyment. So going forward, the domestic sphere will be your responsibility. All of it. The cooking, the cleaning, the school runs, the homework, the emotional support for the children. I need to be untethered so I can find myself again. Travel. Socialize. Live. I'll be the one going out. You'll be the one staying in." She smiled then, a bright, triumphant smile, as if she just solved a complex problem for both of us. There was no negotiation. It was a decree. She was informing me that my role as a partner was terminated, and my new position as an unpaid household manager was to begin immediately. My brain didn't panic. It went into work mode. The variable had changed. The system was now unbalanced. A loud, emotional reaction would be pointless noise. It would be what she expected. It would give her control. I had to find the signal, so I looked at her, held her gaze for a beat, and gave the one-word answer she was least prepared for. "Sure." Her smile flickered. Just for a second. A micro-expression of confusion. She had a whole flowchart of arguments ready for my objections, and I just skipped to the end. "Good," she said, regaining her composure. "I'm glad you're not going to be difficult about this. I'm meeting friends tonight. Don't wait up." She turned and clicked out of the room. I finished making dinner. I sat with my kids, and I was present. But my mind was already running simulations. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the sound of her breathing, and faced the cold, hard data point. The woman next to me saw me not as her husband, but as an obstacle to be managed. It took me 3 days. 3 days of going to work, helping with homework, and pretending everything was normal while my internal processors ran hot. I researched divorce law in our state. I looked at our finances, the mortgage, the savings, my retirement, the credit cards. I saw with chilling clarity how intertwined we were, and how messy this would be. On the 3rd day, a Friday, I made a call and scheduled a consultation for the following Monday with a highly recommended family law attorney. The meeting was a 2-hour deep dive. I laid out the situation with the same dispassion I would use for a business presentation. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Miss Victoria, didn't focus on the emotion. She focused on the facts. The house, our primary asset, was bought after we were married, but my premarital savings had made up a chunk of the down payment. We discussed what was marital property versus separate property. We talked about custody. She warned me it would be a long, expensive fight. I retained her on the spot. I then booked a 4-day trip for myself, leaving the following week. It wasn't an impulse. It was a strategic necessity to create distance. The night before I left, I wrote a simple note. The next morning, I woke the kids and told them I had a short work trip, that I loved them, and that I'd call every day. After dropping them at school, I returned to the silent house. I walked into our bedroom and placed the letter on Diane's pillow. It wasn't divorce papers. Miss Victoria was clear that serving her properly was crucial. It was a simple, handwritten letter. Diane, I have thought about the new arrangement. I accept that our marriage is over. I am taking a few days to process. When I return, we will need to discuss the terms of our separation and the future for the children. I have retained legal counsel to help navigate this. Then I left. An hour into my drive, my phone started to buzz. I let it. The noise had begun. Now it was time to find the signal. Update 1. The initial reaction from Diane was just as I'd simulated. She wasn't apologetic, she was annoyed. Her first text message wasn't panicked, it was arrogant. Okay, I get it, you're upset. A few days to pout is fine. Let me know when you're done with your little trip so we can get back to normal. She genuinely believed this was a tantrum. That I'd come back, tail between my legs, and accept my new duties. The official legal papers, served to her by a process server 2 days after I left, shattered that delusion. That's when the real storm hit. The calls were incessant. Her voicemails were a mix of theatrical sobbing and vitriolic rage. Her parents, Douglas and Joyce, got involved. Douglas bellowed about my duty as a man, while Joyce whispered about my cruelty and how I was destroying my children's mother. It was a coordinated, if predictable, guilt campaign. I returned not to the house, but to a short-term rental I'd secured. The first major dirty trick wasn't a secret bank transfer. It was more mundane and insidious. I got a fraud alert email from my credit card company. A charge for over $7,000 from a high-end designer boutique had been flagged. I have a card, and Diane has a supplementary one in her name tied to my account. She had clearly decided to start funding her season of enjoyment early. I called the credit card company, confirmed it was her, and then did something I should have done years ago. I reported her card as no longer authorized and had it immediately canceled. I paid the bill, it was my legal debt, but I cut off the supply. We had our first meeting a week later, in Miss Victoria's soulless conference room. Diane came with her own lawyer, a bulldog type her father was paying for. She looked tired, but her eyes were hard. "This is a ridiculous overreaction, Peter," she began, before her lawyer put a hand on her arm. "My client is willing to reconcile," her lawyer said smoothly, "if Mr. Matthews is prepared to support his emotional and psychological needs during her period of recovery." It was breathtaking. They were framing her ultimatum as a medical condition and my refusal as abuse. "We are not here to discuss reconciliation," Ms. Victoria said flatly. "We are here to discuss the equitable division of assets and a custody plan." I brought up the credit card bill. "And we need to establish financial boundaries. Diane, your card has been canceled." A flash of fury crossed her face. "You did what? That's my emergency card." "A $7,000 handbag is not an emergency, Diane," I replied, my voice level. I later heard from a mutual friend that she'd had a rather embarrassing moment trying to book a spa day on the now-defunct card. It was a small, petty consequence, but it was the first tangible result of her actions. She had pushed, and for the first time, she'd felt the wall. Update 2. The past couple of months have been a grinding war of attrition. The legal process is slow and ugly. Diane's initial proposal was a fantasy document. She wanted the house, 70% of all my liquid assets, permanent alimony, and sole custody, citing my emotional abandonment as proof of instability. The smear campaign is in full swing. I'm the villain in every story she tells. The midlife crisis husband, the cruel controller who cut off his wife financially, leaving out the part about the $7 handbag. Some people believe it. My real friends see through it. The confrontation with her father, Douglas, happened last month. He showed up at my apartment building, waiting for me in the lobby. He tried to corner me between the elevator and the wall. "We're gonna have a talk," he said, his voice low and menacing. "No, we're not," I said, keeping my own voice down but firm. "If you have something to say, Douglas, say it through Diane's lawyer. I'm not talking to some suit. I'm talking to you. You're gonna stop this nonsense and give my daughter what she deserves." He was getting louder, red-faced, drawing the attention of my neighbor who was getting her mail. What she deserves is to be a co-parent and get a job, I said. Now, you're creating a scene in my private residence. I suggest you leave before I call building security. He scoffed. You'd call security on me? I'd call them on anyone causing a disturbance. Leave, Douglas. He stood there for a long moment, puffing out his chest, but the sight of my neighbor on her phone, looking concerned, made him deflate. He shot me a look of pure hatred, muttered something about me being a coward, and stormed out. It wasn't a clean win. It was a tense, ugly de-escalation that left me shaken. But I held my ground. The kids are the hardest part. Diane is trying to poison them, making passive-aggressive comments they repeat back to me. Mommy says she's sad we can't go to the beach because you won't give her any money. I counter it with stability and honesty. That's a grown-up issue, buddy. The money from selling the house will be split to make sure you have 2 great homes, one with me and one with Mom. And that's the main battlefield now. The house. It's not my silver bullet. It's our biggest marital asset, and we are fighting over every last cent of its value. Update 3. 7 months later, justice isn't a lightning strike. It's the slow, grinding erosion of a mountain of delusion. The fight over the house was brutal. My lawyer argued that my premarital down payment should be considered separate property. Her lawyer argued that 12 years of mortgage payments from my salary, marital funds, had made the entire property a commingled marital asset. They were both right to a degree. After months of back and forth, it was clear that going to court would be a coin toss. The judge could go either way. We settled. The house would be sold and the equity would be split. She got a slightly larger percentage, 55-45, in exchange for her dropping the demand for permanent alimony. She got a one-time payment of rehabilitative alimony for 18 months. It was a compromise. It stung to give up that much, but it achieved my primary goal, liquidation and severance. She couldn't live in my past on my dime, which brought us to the final, most personal negotiation. The contents of the house. The furniture, the art, the memories, and the dining room table. My oak table. I told Miss Victoria from the start, I want that table. As expected, her lawyer listed it as a significant marital asset, the central piece of the family home valued at X amount. They weren't wrong, so we traded. It was a cold, hard negotiation. She wanted the brand new OLED TV we'd bought last year and a set of expensive paintings her mother had given us. Her lawyer insisted on it. Fine, I told Miss Victoria. Give them the TV and the art. In exchange, I get the table, and it's listed specifically in the settlement as my sole property. There was a final, tense phone call between the lawyers. Diane agreed. I think, in her mind, she had won the more valuable assets in terms of cash. She never understood what the table represented. The day I went to get my things was quiet and arranged. I brought my brother in his truck. Diane was there, watching me with cold, dead eyes. Her mother was not. When we went to the dining room, she said, "Just so you know, the TV is worth 3 times what you paid for that lumber. You're an idiot." "You're probably right," I said. My brother and I carefully disassembled the legs. As we carried the first heavy slab of oak out the door, I felt a profound sense of victory. It wasn't about humiliating her. It was about reclaiming the one thing that was purely a product of my own labor and love for a family I thought was real. I had paid for it twice, once with lumber and sweat, and once more on the legal battlefield. That made it truly mine. Final update. It's been a year. The divorce is a sealed document in a file cabinet. Life is different. It's smaller, quieter, but it's more stable. I live in a rented townhouse. It's not as big as the house, but it's enough. The oak table is the heart of my home. My kids and I eat dinner there every night they're with me. We have a 50-50 custody schedule that is now set in stone. We do homework on it. Its scarred, imperfect surface is the testament to our new beginning. Diane got her payout from the house sale. It was a significant 6-figure sum. For a few months, she lived the life she described in her ultimatum. There was a trip to Italy, a new car, a lot of social media posts from expensive restaurants. She was burning through the money with impressive speed, trying to prove to the world and herself that she had won. Her parents enabled it, basking in the reflected glow of her temporary wealth. But lump sums are not infinite salaries. The rehabilitative alimony ran out 3 months ago. The house money, I hear, is now worryingly low. The Italian leather handbags are in a closet in the modest condo she now rents, without her parents' help, as their well has also run dry. The friends who flocked to her during her spending spree have mysteriously vanished. She had to get a job. She's doing freelance social media management for small businesses. It's a real job, with deadlines and responsibilities. She hates it. Her online persona has shifted from living my best life to vague, resentful posts about the struggles of a single mom in a world that doesn't value creative women. She doesn't have a change of heart. She hasn't realized her mistake. In her narrative, she had her kingdom, and I, the dragon, stole it. She will believe that forever. But the real world is a practical, unforgiving place. The consequences weren't a sudden dramatic fall, but the slow, inevitable grinding down of fantasy against reality. I don't rejoice in her struggle. It just is. It's the result of her choices. My focus is on my kids, on my work, on this quiet peace I fought so hard for. I didn't get everything I wanted. I lost money, I have scars, but I am not an employee in my own life. I am a father. I am a man who, when faced with a hostile takeover, chose to liquidate his shares and build something new. Something smaller, but something real. And every night, when I sit at my table with my children, I know I made the right call.